Hey, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory that's due to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who all in this truth from rule well. Peace and salutations to the 144,000 and the rest of the elect. Unto you I say shalom. Coming to you back with another lesson through the Spirit. And I'm going to entitle this one, Esau's time is running out. And who is Esau, Edom in the scriptures, would be today what would call himself white, the self-proclaimed white man. You know, the Caucasian, which ultimately they put that title upon themselves so they could be looked as the quote-unquote supreme race, supreme nation, comparing to all the rest of the nations of the people. You know, but really, he did that to hide his true identity, which is the biblical Edomite, which is the descendants of their forefather Esau, which was the twin brother of Jacob, which his name was later changed to Israel. And those two blessings, which that birthright was ultimately predestined for Jacob and his descendants, the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel, from Judah down to Issachar, which today would be the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, and also the Israelite foreigners that are going to be scattered among all these heathen nations, but their lineage goes back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, because the tribes of Israel has been scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, throughout history. And how much more now, where it's the most amount of people, you know, in this modern day age. I think like 9 billion people. And you know, that rate constantly going up. But what Esau Edom is trying to do, he's trying to depopulate. You know, he's trying to do away with as many people as possible. And he had a test run 6 years ago with the 2020 ordeal, the C-19, putting the juice, the VAX, inside these people so he could delete them. But now he's about to come down with that great wrath, because ultimately Esau, the self-proclaimed white man, he knows that he has a short time. So what does he have to do? He has to get his NWO, his New World Order, up and running ASAP, because Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai already showed him, hey, you don't have that long, Esau. You got to get it up and running. You know, he's about to come down with that persecution among the nation of Israel, starting with the elect. But the elect will be kept. But for these other Israelites, they know that the Israelites that are bullshitting, that are pushing false doctrine, and even, you know, these 2/3 that don't really know about the truth like that, but Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai is not going to allow nobody to have an excuse. Everybody's going to know the truth. Like it says, the truth shall be preached unto a witness unto all nations, including our people, the Israelites, and these heathens. And then the end is going to come. The end of Esau, Edom's kingdom, is right around the corner, because he doesn't have long. You can see the days are speeding up. He's trying to buy himself some time by making daylight savings permanent, but it's not going to work. Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai already set that timeline for this devil to get the hell up out of ruling the planet Earth. So this is Job chapter 20 and verse 4. It says, knowest thou not this of old, since man was placed upon earth? Verse 5, that the triumph of the wicked is short, and the joy of the hypocrite but for a moment. Because Esau Edom, the self-proclaimed white man, is the biggest hypocrite upon the planet earth. He's blaming all this global warming. He's blaming famine, pestilence. He's blaming the tribes, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans for the problems of the earth, because water's running out, deforestation, GMO foods. That's not Jake doing that. No, that's Esau Edom, the self-proclaimed white man. And he's being found out, especially the tiny caps, the small hats, the ones you can't speak about publicly, or you get canceled, you get banned, especially if you're a celebrity, a rapper, a actor, you know, a politician. They're going to off you because you signed a covenant with Esau, Edom, with Amalek. We tried the tiny caps, the 48ers, the imposters. And he's a hypocrite. He's blaming all these problems of the earth upon the tribes, but really it's Esau, Edom. Jake isn't bombing people over there in the Gaza Strip. Jake ain't dropping bombs on the infrastructure of Iran. No, that's Esau, Edom. But he's the biggest hypocrite upon the planet Earth, because you see the earth is mourning, is sighing and crying. He's constantly taking resources from the earth. But he's claiming to be, oh man, we got to fix the earth. We got to fix the environment, when he's the one destroying it. That's why Yahweh Bashim Shai has to put a stop to this devil. If not, he would end up destroying the earth. He would end up destroying humanity as a whole, and he would end up destroying himself. It says, verse 6, Job 20:6, though his excellency mount up to the heavens and his head reach into the cloud, that Obadiah chapter 1, in verse 3, he exalted himself as the eagle, which that eagle being the mascot, the fowl of the air of Esau, Edom. It says, verse 7, yet he shall perish forever like his own dung. Shit. They which have seen him shall say, where is he? Because once he gets taken out the power, like it says in the book of Isaiah chapter 14, everybody's going to look at this devil like, man, this was he who had the earth trembling, scared because of his nukes, his thermonuclear missiles, because of his military might, because of all this power that he had, propaganda, having control of the media, music, movies, having control of the food supply. So everybody right now is starting to look at him like, oh man, he's not that same devil, that same so-called white man from the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, right when he dropped those bombs at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. People were scared of him, but now everybody, like the scripture says, let the weak say I'm strong. That's why all these nations are bucking up against Esau, Edom, because ultimately it's prophecy. Like it says in the book of Proverbs 21, the king's heart, which is the La'ab, the mind, is in the hands of Yahweh Bashim Shai. He controlled it whatsoever he wanted to. And what does he want Esau, Edom to do? He wants him to be divided amongst himself. Like it says, a kingdom divided cannot stand. That's what's happening. Esau, Edom, the separate white man, is divided amongst himself. That's why he's crashing out. They're not agreeing with each other, especially these elites, these Rothschilds, these Rockefellers. They're not at one accord. And that's the history of Esau, Edom. It's like during the time of Maccabees. What happened after Alexander the Great died? What did his four commanders do? They were fighting for the power, and that's the same thing that's happening today. But Yahweh Bashim Shai is not going to allow Esau, Edom to continue to rule, because he's proud as all hell. He thinks that he's never going to be brought down. But ultimately it was the Lord who set him up to rule as an example of what not to do upon the planet Earth, and what's going to happen when you rule the earth in wickedness, when you put holy hell upon the apple of Yahweh Bashim Shai eye, which is the Israelites. It says, Daniel 4:17, this matter is by the decree of the watchers and a demand by the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth to whomsoever he will, and setteth up over it the basis of all men. So Yahweh Bashim Shai is the one who gave this devil his kingdom, who gave him this temporary blessing, because he sold his birthright. He sold his birthright for a morsel of meat because he was hungry. But that's Esau, Edom, desperate, insatiable. Can never have enough. Can't control himself. Emotional as all hell. A crybaby. And that's why he's about to crash out, because he don't want to just give up his kingdom like, oh man, here go the keys to the kingdom. No, he's about to be the ultimate crash out. That's why all these YNs, these Keisha, Pookies, and Ray Rays, they all learn their behavior from their father. Like Yahweh Shai said, you are from your father the devil. These 2/3, these YNs. And that's why they're going to perish along with Esau, because they don't want to repent to Yahweh Bashim Shai. They want to keep following after the ways of Esau, after the ways of Babylon, being drunken with that Babylonian wine. And And that's why majority of our people, the 2/3 here in America, are going to take that MOTB, that RFID microchip, so they can continue to, quote unquote, thrive and get the bag. And it's all BS. This is Job chapter 14 and verse 5, and it reads, seeing his days are determined, the number of his months are with thee. Thou hast appointed his bounds that he cannot pass. So Yahweh Bashmel Shai, he already set up that line in the sand where Esau, Edom can't go past. Just like the water from the oceans. Like Yahweh Bashmel Shai said, he's the one that set that bound where the water can't go past the sand. And it's the same thing with Esau, Edom. The Lord already set that bound where this devil cannot pass, where he can't go over it. Because ultimately it's prophecy, it's Bible prophecy for Esau, Edom to be taken down in these latter days. That's why the days are speeding up. What Yahweh Shai said, what should be thy sign of the second of his second coming. And he gave us, the insight of what to look for, which ultimately the earthquakes in diverse places. You had Mexico get hit with an earthquake yesterday at 7.4. You got all these pestilence, explosive diarrhea. You got pretty much just like Egypt was being plagued before it got taken down. Before Yahweh Bashmel Shai drowned Pharaoh and his soldiers. It's the same thing today. Yahweh Bashmel Shai is tearing America, Babylon the Great, bit by bit. The infrastructure's all whack. You got these farmers crying because they're not getting any rain. It's hot as hell. You got El Super Nino. These are all the beginning of sorrows. These people are bugging out right now. How much more when it's all hell breaking loose, when there's no food in the grocery stores, when there's no internet, there's no TikTok, there's no AC, there's no Apple CarPlay. People are gonna bug the hell out. Especially these Americans, these Babylonians that are used to comforts, that are used to just having the one of all things at the reach of a hand. This is 2nd Ezra chapter 6 and verse 7, and it reads, then answered I and said, what shall be the parting asunder of the times? Or when shall be the end of the first and the beginning of it that followeth? So that asunder, the dividing of the times, that cusp. We're at the cusp of the kingdom of Esau, Edom, the self-proclaimed white man that is transitioning into the kingdom of heaven, which is going to be also upon the planet Earth. Like Yahweh Bashmel Shai said, on earth as it is in heaven, the kingdom of heaven is going to be here upon the planet Earth. But before that happens, Esau, even the self-proclaimed white man, has to get taken out the way. And that's what's happening. That's why everybody's losing respect for this devil, these heathen nations, Moab, the so-called Chinese, Ishmael, the so-called Arabs, so on and so forth. People aren't looking at this devil the same way that they used to. Being scared, trembling because of his nukes. Now everybody has nukes. That's why that Third World War is at its beginning stages. But before that Third World War happens, this dollar has to collapse. This economy has to collapse so he could bring in that RFID micro chip, which is the MOTB, written about in Revelation chapter 13 and verse 16. It says, verse 8, and he said unto me, from Abraham unto Isaac, when Jacob and Esau were born of him, Jacob's hand held first the heel of Esau. Because that's what's happening. How is Esau, Edom, having his heel, being pulled by Jacob, by Israel, like it says in the book of 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, by the mouth of Yahweh Bashmel Shai, which is the prophets, his mouthpiece. They're prophesying the destruction of this kingdom of Babylon the Great. Like it says in the book of Jeremiah 28 and verse 8, the prophets that have been before me have prophesied of war. That's what we're doing right now. We're prophesying the Third World War. We're prophesying the thermonuclear destruction of America. And we're prophesying the deliverance of the elect, the salvation of the elect, the remnant, the 144,000 and 1/3. That's what is hurting this devil. Just you know, the scriptures, the words of Yahweh Bashim Al Shai. How much more when the Lord raises that standard? When Esau, Edom comes down with that great wrath. It says in 2 Ezra 6 and 9, for Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. Yeah, because we're at the end of this devil's kingdom. We're at the end of the rope. That's why he's trying to buy himself more time by extending the day, you know, daylight savings, you know. But he can't. Yahweh Bashim Al Shai is only going to speed up the days more and more. So this devil, time is not on his side. Time is against him. This is Revelation chapter 12 and verse 12. And it reads, therefore rejoice ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. And who are the ones who are rejoicing at the fact that this kingdom is fallen, that all hell is breaking loose, even though we have to go into that straight and narrow path, like it says in the book of Acts chapter 14, through much tribulation shall they enter into the kingdom of heaven. It's not meant to be easy like these Christians love to push, you know, prosperity doctrine. Oh man, pre-tribulation rapture and 7-year tribulation. No, Yahweh Bashim Al Shai is going to put his elect through that test, you know, through the hour of temptation, but he's going to keep them. He's going to deliver them. Even if they have to be martyrs, he's going to rise. He's going to, you know, risen up first in Yahweh Shai. It says, woe to the inhabitants of the earth. Who are the inhabitants of the earth? These people in the world, the 2/3. Those who haven't made, you know, try to be in the spirit of Micah chapter 2 and verse 10, arise ye and depart. You know, they're still caught up in this world, you know, worshiping these gods, these idols, you know, still caught up in Christianity, still caught up in Roman Catholicism, you know, worshiping all these different gods and idols. When here, all hell is breaking loose. It says, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he has a short time, because Esau, Edom doesn't have long. That's why he's trying to buy himself time by changing the times, but it's not going to work. And get this last one, these last ones. This is the book of Sirach 10 and 1. A wise judge will instruct his people, and the government of a prudent man is well ordered. Yeah, and that's not Esau. He's a complete opposite of that. That's why Yahweh Bashim Al Shai is about to establish the kingdom of heaven upon the planet Earth. It said, I'm going to jump down to verse 3. Sirach 10 and 3, an unwise king destroyeth his people, but through the prudence of them which are in authority, the city shall be inhabited. Yeah, because all that he's done is destroyed the tribes and including his own people. Here you got the most homeless people are Edomites, self-proclaimed white people. How are you homeless in your own kingdom? You know, you had a 400, 500 year head start and still, you know, at the bottom. That's how you know he's a loser. He's a 2-time loser. Jump down to verse 8, Sirach 10 and 8. Because of unrighteous dealings, injuries, and riches got by deceit, the kingdom is translated from one people to another. Because that's how he got his wealth, you know, through robbing, you know, the free labor off the backs of the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans during the 15, 16, 1700s, 1800s, and even now. You know, now he disguised it as, you get a job, you get a career, you pay taxes, you know, but we're still subject to payments, you know, because we're still in captivity. We're still in that Baruch chapter 3 and verse 8, you know, but Yahweh Bashim Al Shai is about to bring this devil down and deliver his elect. You know, he's going to make known who are his remnant, you know, ultimately for standing stiffly for the testimony of Yahweh Bashim Al Shai. So Esau, he's through, he's done, you know, but that's pretty much the point. I pray that this was edifying unto the elect. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory that's due to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who all learn this truth from him who do well. Peace and salutations to the 144,000 and the rest of the elect. And to you I say shalom.